What's up, everybody? I hope you guys are all doing well in these absolutely crazy times that we're living in right now. I swear, one day I'm going to open up my window and see Will Smith walking down the street with an AR-15 and a German Shepherd. In all seriousness, though, this is not something that we should mess around with. This whole staying indoors and social distancing thing is completely necessary. But since we're all spending more time indoors, keeping to ourselves, we suddenly have a lot more time on our hands. So we could use this as an opportunity to tackle that creative project or learn that new skill that we've been putting off or just maybe have not had the time for. So I figured now's the perfect time to drop you guys a brand new Adobe Illustrator tutorial. This thing is gonna be super fun to do. It's gonna teach you beginner to novice level Illustrator users some pretty cool new tricks, I hope. And to help you guys out just a little bit more, today's video is sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of cool classes to help us all explore new skills or sharpen up our current skill set. I've actually been a Skillshare member for over 2 years now. I initially joined to learn how to use Adobe Illustrator way back when I knew literally nothing about it. I needed designs for my clothing brand real bad, and well, no one was gonna hand them to me. Well, that move definitely paid off, and since then, I've taken a ton of classes on graphic design, photography, video editing, web design, marketing, and all kinds of other stuff to really help me out with my businesses and this channel. And it's all been for less than 10 bucks a month. Seriously, it's pretty much the same cost as any streaming service, except you actually get life skills out of it. I highly recommend checking out any of the classes by Aaron Draplin. Aaron is a god among men in the world of design. I've done each one of his classes more than once, and I've learned so much. They are super entertaining and packed full of grade A design knowledge. I just finished redoing his logo design class for a second time a few days ago and picked up a few cool new tricks to add to my arsenal. And since they're sponsoring today's video, Skillshare is giving the first 1,000 of you guys 2 months of premium for free when you click the link down in the description below. So if you need a quick rundown on the very basics of Illustrator before starting this tutorial, they set you guys up pretty nicely to do that. So make sure to check that out. Being a Skillshare member has been absolutely huge for me, and I cannot recommend it enough to you guys. But with that being said, let's make some stuff. So we're gonna play with some type today. We're gonna take a very basic, simple font and just mess around with it, get a little bit weird until it turns into a cool looking design. I'm gonna keep this thing simple enough so that hopefully any of you guys can follow along with it, regardless of your Illustrator experience, and still make something that looks pretty cool. And you know what? Since I mentioned Aaron Draplin earlier, let's make this piece kind of inspired by his style. His style is very minimalist, very clean and concise. It's honestly amazing. And I can tell you as a brand owner and as a print/design shop owner that more often than not, the simpler it is, the more it sells. And now that I've made that decision, I am way more excited to do this now. Let's do this thing. All right, let's start off with getting ourselves some words to work with. So I'm gonna use my brand name, 38 Ride Company. I'm also gonna make this 2 separate pieces just because I already kind of have an idea in my head of what I want to do here. Next up, we're going to choose a font for this thing. I'm pretty sure some Futura would be good for this style that we're going after today. I'm not sure which one here. Let's go with Black Bold, the super heavy one. Yeah, that looks pretty solid, but I don't want to use lowercase, so we're going to go ahead in the character panel here and click all caps. That's way better. So the first thing that I see when I look at this is the kerning is just horrendous. If you're not familiar with the term, kerning is the spacing between the letters, just to keep it simple. And if you look at this thing, it's kind of all over the map. There's a small gap between the T and the H here, but a big one between the H and the I next to it. The T and the Y are touching over here. There's a weird big gap here, weird big gap here, another one over here. It's just very off balance and unappealing to the eye in general. I'm gonna show you guys just how big of a difference that this actually makes. And now there are 2 ways that we can fix this. The first way is that if we just click our text and go up here to the character panel and see this VA with the sideways arrows, if we use that up and down, we can change the spacing in between the letters like that. But we don't want to do that because that's evenly spacing the letters across the board, whereas these letters are individually spaced weird. So we want to do this manually. So the way that you would do that is bring up your text tool and just drop your cursor in between any of these letters and hold Option, and your left and right arrows will manually move those things around. So we're gonna do that real quick and just get this thing looking like it should. So with just those couple of moves, you can already see a very big difference in this thing. Everything looks way more balanced across the board. You can clearly see that the bottom one is much more appealing to the eye. It's not exactly perfect yet, but we're not gonna worry about that just yet. We're gonna go back and fix that later. But there's more you can do with kerning yet and get kind of creative with it. And we're gonna go ahead and break the rules of clean, even spacing that I just laid out a few minutes ago. So what we're gonna do is just make another copy of all this stuff and drop it down here. And now we're gonna start just pushing stuff together and seeing what happens with it. So I'm gonna just go ahead and start kind of smashing letters together that look like they belong together. A lot of this stuff, we won't be able to do it because it'll just look weird, like right there, the T and the H connecting looks weird. Clearly we can't do it with the H and the I because that just makes a big old block and it's stupid looking. But some of these other letters, we can kind of squish together and it makes sense. Like those ones fit well together. Anything with a round edge against a flat one, that's gonna look cool. We can bring in the I and the R right here a little bit. We can bring in the E and the D. And I'm gonna see what else we can do with this thing yet. So now when we look at this thing, again, we can see a pretty drastic difference from that clean, evenly spaced one that we did a few minutes ago to now we got something a little bit more stylized. I kind of tightened up the spacing between everything a little bit. Again, we jammed in some of these letters together that, you know, it shouldn't make sense, but it does. It looks kind of cool. And now we've got a solid base to work with on our design. Let's start messing with this a little bit more yet, because there's a couple things that I want to change about it. The first thing that I want to change is I want to make this upper type bigger, the same width as the bottom. We can just eyeball it right now. It doesn't have to be dead on perfect. We're gonna fix that later on. That's close enough for me right now. And the next thing I want to fix is there's some really weird, wonky stuff going on with this lettering. If we zoom in on it, you can really see it in the A here. There's this weird curve and this flat top going on in here. Same with the N, same with the M, has a whole bunch of it going on. And with a block kind of heavy letter like this, I feel like it should be a nice, clean, smooth cut. It should be perfect. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna fix that. So in order to do that, we gotta convert this text. We gotta turn it into a nice working shape. So we gotta just highlight it all, hit Shift Command O, that converts any text to outlines. Another way you can do that is go up to Object and Expand. It does the exact same thing to text. And now each one of these letters are individually editable. Every single point we can tackle it and mess with it however we want. So I'm gonna go ahead and ungroup these so we can tackle each letter individually. Just hit Shift Command G and that ungroups all this stuff. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring up our direct selection tool, which is the A key, and we're gonna mess around with the points on this thing. Now there's a few different ways that you can do this. The cool thing about Illustrator is there's really like 10 different ways to do everything. So you could come in here and you can delete these points and just redraw this straight line back in with the pen tool. That would be no problem here on the end because that seems pretty straightforward. But some of the other letters would be kind of weird. Like let's use the Y. The Y's got this weird kind of like dipping going on in here. And if we deleted the points in here, if we redrew this straight with the pen tool here, it wouldn't be a nice straight line with this outer edge. It would kind of like taper off a little bit here because we can see this one dips. So what I do is just kind of my way is I just grab the point individually because you can kind of see it lining up with the line that's already on. And I'll just kind of drag it down to wherever it needs to go. And I can see that it's dead in line with the straight line up top there. And then I'll just grab this thing and I'll hit Unite, and then I'll go back in here and just delete these other points out of here that don't need to be there. And I'll go back here and do it with, I don't know, holy crap, there's a lot of points in here that don't need to be there. Those will go away though. So we'll do the same thing here. Go in, drag that down to like there, make sure it's dead in line with the original straight line that's there. Hit Unite, go back, hit our A key, delete that, and now we should have a very clean straight line on that Y. So I'm gonna run through this quickly and knock out the rest of the letters and get them all nice, clean, and straightened up. Now that that's done, we can go through and zoom in on this stuff here. You can see all these letters are nice and crispy and straight and pointy, the way that a block letter really should be, in my opinion. Now we can move on and really start tricking this thing out. So the first thing that I'm seeing is there is a T and a T on either end of this thing, and I really dig symmetrical logos and stuff that's evenly, cleanly spaced, stuff like that. So we're gonna work with that. So I'm gonna just take the size of this ride company down for right now. We don't need that just yet. This is not what the final design is going to look like just yet. I'm just getting it out of my way. The first thing that I'm going to go after are these T's that I see on the end, because we can definitely work with that and turn that into something cool. So I'm going to select both of those, and I don't know, let's bring them up somewhere around, I don't know, there, I guess. And let's pull them in a little closer, back to where they used to be. Cool, that works for me. And now we've done that, I can definitely see right here, we got, boom, these two lining up cleanly together. We can connect those two, so let's definitely do that. So let's pull up our direct selection tool, and we're just gonna select those 2 points on the end of the T. I'm gonna hold down Shift so it stays nice and straight, and drag it over to the other one. And you know what, before I go any further, let's go back and tackle that spacing that I said was not dead on perfect. Let's do that real quick before we really get into this thing. So one way to do that, the easiest way for me, is I'll just draw a shape in between something that needs to be evenly gapped. So let's give ourselves a little rectangle here. Let's make that thing pink so we can see that what the hell we're doing. I like the space between the H and the I here, so that's exactly what we're gonna use as a reference for everything else. And we'll just go line this thing up from edge to edge. See right there, you can see the T on the other end is a little bit off, so we'll move that one in. And we'll go through each letter that has a gap in between it. Again, see the R is just like a tiny nut hair away from where it should be, so let's get that over. And we're gonna go through and do this to every single letter that has a space in between it and knock that out real quick. All right, so that cleaned things up quite a bit. Those gaps were off all over the place, just a little bit. So now we're gapped perfectly between the top of the T, top of all the letters here, gapped perfectly between each one of the letters. The only one that I didn't touch was the gap between the I and the D right here, just because these letters are smaller and it's gonna look weird, I think, if we have the matching same size gap here. It's gonna look like they're way too far apart because the letters are smaller. So I left that one the way it is. That should probably be okay. So now that we've got that done, let's finish off these T's. Let's go and bring our direct selection tool back up. Select the bottom of these things. And I'm gonna hold Shift down. I'm gonna bring them down to there. We're gonna box this thing in using these T's. So that's probably gonna be cool, I think. Let's pull that down to there. We got our smart guides on, by the way. Definitely make sure you have those things on. Go to View, go to Smart Guides here, or you can just hit Command Control U, whichever one. That's gonna help you out a lot along the way here when lining stuff up. That looks cool. Now that we got that done, I'm gonna take these bottom letters and size them up accordingly. I already gapped the gap between the top lettering and the bottom lettering, so I don't want that to change. So one way I can do that is just grab this one bottom corner here, and that gap is gonna stay the exact same. And Smart Guides lined us up exactly with the gap along the back of the H there. So with that done, you can see we're starting to get somewhere. I'm gonna keep these little spacers here at the bottom because we're probably gonna need them later on, but I can definitely see now that the ends of these T's are really stumpy and weird looking, and we gotta fix that. So I'm gonna pull up my direct selection tool and grab the points on, let's do the one on the right. There's a couple ways that we can do this and make sure that each end of the T are even. We can make those spacers again, we can pull guides in, or we can just use our left and right arrows and count them off. That's the easiest way for me. So I've got these two things selected here, and I'm just gonna use my right arrow key and count it off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's pretty good. Let's go 6. Yeah, I'm good with 6. So we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. Left arrow key, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Another thing that I'm seeing is now with the top completely boxed in like that, the bottom looks just too wide open to me. So I think we're gonna go ahead and box this whole thing in somehow and work off of a nice clean rectangular shape type of deal. So again, there's more than one way to do this. The easiest way for me is just I'm gonna grab the rectangle tool, also the M key, and I'm just gonna match the same thickness here with the top one. So that should be dead on perfect because our smart guides are on. I'm gonna pull this one down to here, and actually our smart guides lined us up with the exact same size gap that we should need in between all of our stuff, so that's awesome. And I'm just gonna pull this over, line it up with the end here, and make sure it's dead lined up with the end here. And let's double check and make sure our smart guides are as smart as they think they are. And yeah, they're dead on, so that's super cool. I'm good with that. So now I got that, I'm obviously gonna have to bring the ends of the T's down just a little bit here. I'm gonna hold the shift key again, keep things nice and straight. Oh, definitely don't wanna do that. Let's pull that down here. That looks cool now, but now that I look at it, things are starting to get a little bit boxy and a little bit square, and I wanna just stylize that, break things up a little bit. Well, one easy way to do that is we can kind of slash cut some of this stuff. So I'm gonna use the T's for that actually. I'm just gonna grab one of these points here at the bottom corner, and I'm gonna do the same thing that I did before and count it off. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That looks all right. I think we need to bring the whole thing out just a little bit more yet. So 1, 2, yeah, that's pretty good. I'm gonna do the same thing here. 1, 2, I'm gonna do 1, 2, 3, 4 on this end. Now we got a nice slash cut on the end of that T. I'm gonna do the same thing at the bottom here because we can get away with it here as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, you know what? Let's make them a little bit sharper yet. Now that we're this far, it's starting to turn into something, but that boxiness is still kind of driving me crazy. So we got to break that up just a little bit. I don't want to get crazy with it, but we can do it with something real simple. I think what we can do is just grab any one of these letters and kind of extend them up into this thing and break it up just a little bit. But I don't want to do anything with a straight line in it because this thing's already riddled with straight lines. So let's do something with an angle to it. Let's use the Y. Let's just get those top 2 points here. We're gonna pull that one upward. Now with this one, you can't use the shift key because if you do, things get kind of crazy and the angle of that is just way off compared to what it's supposed to be. So I'm just gonna eyeball this one and make sure I'm following along with the line that was originally there, which is right there, perfect. And the smart guide's gonna lock us in dead on top with that. So that's cool. Can't really see what I've done there, so let's just make that some kind of a color for now. And let's do the same on the bottom somewhere. Let's use the A since that's kind of a matching shape. All right, cool. So now we can see that that's starting to do a little bit of something, but I don't want to just leave it like that. I want to like actually make a line break in these things. So one way we can do that is we can just use an offset path to do it. So let's start with the Y, make sure this is even gonna work. And let's go down here to path. Let's go offset path. Let's turn on preview so we can see what the hell is going on. What I'm trying to do here is just close this gap so that we have the exact same size as everything else, because that's what's gonna cut out our little slash cut in the top here. And I want that gap to be the same as all the gaps that we made earlier. Otherwise, what's the point in doing that? So let's try 2.7 points, see where that lands us. Oh, it's close. Let's go 2.6. That's pretty much right on the money. I'm gonna manually size that from here, so that's cool. A quick way to manually resize that. Oh, we're already selected on it, so just make sure you got your selection tool up. Hit Shift and Option so that it doesn't move. It'll just kind of size from the center. And I'm just gonna drag that down just a little bit until everything lines up nice and clean, just like that. So that's cool with me. So now that we got that, I'm gonna ungroup that real quick. I'm gonna color our Y black again so we can see what we're doing here. Now we got a little something going on. I don't know what that is. And now I'm just gonna take that offset path that we just made and I'm gonna select that. I'm gonna select that top bar of the T here. We're gonna go over here to the Pathfinder where it says minus front. Click on that. Cool. Now we got a solid line break going in that thing. So let's do the same thing to the A at the bottom. So that's pretty good. We're almost there. There's one thing that's just kind of bothering me about this thing that I want to do something with, and that's right in here. There's this little bit of a space. We need to do something there because this harsh angle and this angle, and then there's this flat edge here. Something just, I just don't like something about that. So we need to fill this thing somehow. And what I'm gonna do, actually, let's grab a piece of this E and see what we can do with it. So let's grab just that right there. I'm gonna go Command C and Command F. That'll paste it on top. I'm just gonna hit Shift so that everything stays nice and lined up while I drag it. And actually, look at that. It lines us up nice and cleanly perfect with the tip of that thing. So that's pretty awesome. I'm gonna hit Command J. That's gonna close this thing off into a closed shape because it was wide open before. We don't want that. Yeah, so now we can do this a couple of ways, actually. I'm gonna take the bottom of this and just do the same thing we did earlier, count it off and use my arrow key. So let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is way too much. I wanna try and match it with this top bit of slash cut here. So let's bring that in 2, which looks like it's dead even. We could go eyeball it and just run with this, or if we want to, we could actually match this thing dead on perfect. So I'll show you guys how to do that. Let's take the same thing. Let's do a piece of this over here. Let's go Command C, Command V to paste it. For some reason, it gives us the whole friggin' thing. We don't want that, but we can work with this. It's close enough. So let's just line those two up right there. I'm gonna delete these extra points that for some reason it gave me. We don't need that whatsoever. We just want that bit of slash right there. So let's make sure that's lined up with the end of that. Hit the A key, let's hit Shift, line that up nice and clean, dead even, perfect. Delete it, we don't need it anymore. And now we've got a nice clean matching slash cut with the top slash. And let's zoom out here and see what yeah, now that looks a lot better. So this is cool, I am happy with this. There's a couple ways that we can go from here. We could finish this thing off, add some color to it, and kind of just do the final prep work you need before sending it off to a client, and this thing would be totally usable the way that it sits. Or we could push it a little bit further and see just what else this thing can do. So let's do both of those. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you keep a live working piece, and that's going to be this one for us. We want to make sure we don't unite anything. We want all these individual shapes the way they are so that we can come back and edit them later on. And actually, already I'm seeing something I want to change. I want to stick these T's out just a little bit further yet. So let's just add a little bit to each one. Yeah, now we can start doing some of the finishing work to this thing. So because we've got our live working piece up there to go back to if we need. So I'm gonna start uniting some of the stuff that should be united, like all these little pieces here. They should all turn into one. So I'm gonna take my selection tool. Let's grab all this top stuff and let's unite all of that. And I'm gonna do the same thing with the bottom stuff. And cool. I already can see how I'm gonna color this thing. So I'm gonna group all that stuff together, and then the bottom we don't need to touch because it should be grouped because we united it. Yes, it is. So now that we have that, I'm gonna do 2 color versions of this thing. I'm gonna stick with the black and orange theme that's going on the screen already because that's one of my favorite color combos of all time. So we're gonna stick with that. That's cool. I'm gonna make one that's mostly black and a little bit orange, and then do one that's kind of the vice versa of that. So we already got the mostly black one going on here. Let's grab just the Ride Company. That'll probably look cool. And let's make that orange. Let's use 21C because that's my go-to orange for everything. It's super cool. Yep, that looks awesome. And let's do the same exact thing again, and now just kind of flip those colors around. So I'm gonna take that, make that black again, and let's grab our top stuff and make that orange, and yeah, that version's way cooler. So yeah, now you see what I mean here, is in this thing is totally usable the way it is. This already looks super cool. I know I could slap this on a t-shirt, on a hoodie or something, and I would definitely dig it. Actually, let's do that real quick right now. And yeah, check that out. That looks cool if you ask me. I would wear that, but we can still take this thing and go quite a bit further yet. We can turn this thing into like a, I don't know, like a sticker type of design, or we can turn it into like a badge or a patch or whatever you'd want to call that. So let's tackle the sticker type of design because that one's going to be very simple to do. So I'm going to grab this whole thing here. We're going to make a copy of it because I'm going to need it in a second. I'm going to go back to path. I'm going to go offset path. Preview. See, that gives us the same offset path that we used before, which is, it's pretty good, but I don't want to have that exact same line thickness going throughout this whole thing like we did earlier. So let's just beef that up a tiny little bit. Let's go to like 3 points or something. That looks pretty good to me. Yeah, we'll run with that. So that looks cool. I'm gonna just go ahead and select everything in here and unite it. And I'm also going to get rid of all this stuff in the middle. Now, there's a couple ways to do this. You could go through and just delete all those extra points. That seems like it's gonna take forever to do. So I'm just gonna pull up my rectangle tool real fast and just draw a rectangle covering all that stuff up. And I'm gonna just select it all, unite it again. And now we got a nice big black patch type of deal. And I'm gonna hit Command F to paste what we copied on top. I need to make that white so we can see what we're doing. And now we've got a bit of a sticker design going here. The way that it sits right now is completely usable. I could send this off to print and be totally happy with it, but we're gonna just spice it up a little bit, just add a little tiny bit more flavor, not really doing anything complicated whatsoever. I'm just gonna grab that offset path here that we did, and I'm just gonna add a little bit of stroke to it. Let's make sure it's the same orange that we did earlier. Let's pump that up to like, I don't know. Oh, I've got my stroke aligned to the middle. I do not want that. We're gonna align the stroke to the outside so we're not closing off that black area that we just made. And yeah, that already looks pretty good, but there's just way too much orange going on in one spot, so I'm just gonna reverse these two colors around, and I think that should probably do it. Just take that, turn that orange instead, and yeah, there we go. Actually, now I'm looking at this, I like this version of the design much better. I like how the offset path kind of gave us these little fangs hanging out the bottom here. That's like, what does Bob Ross say? Happy little accidents? That's a happy little accident we got right there. So yeah, if we were gonna finish this thing up and turn it into a finalized sticker, let's just grab all this stuff just to make sure we're not missing anything. Let's go Object, Expand Appearance. That's gonna expand out that outline that we made earlier. And now we can kind of group all this stuff. And now we have a finished, ready to go sticker design. And actually, now that I look at this thing, I think this would probably work better on the shirt or the hoodie. So I'm gonna do that real quick because now I'm curious. There we go, we got a sick looking hoodie right there. I dig that a lot. Now I want this. There is a really good chance that I'm gonna end up screen printing what we just made here. But now for our badge slash patch type of design, whatever this thing is gonna be. This one's gonna be a little bit more complicated to make, but it's not gonna be any more steps or any different tools than we've already used. So with this one, I wanna get a little bit funkier with it yet. And since we're working in the Draplin style, we're gonna do something that he does a lot of, and that's taking things and stacking them and repeating them, which looks cool literally every single time that he does it. But with this thing, if we're gonna do that, we gotta do something a little bit different, because this thing, if we just take this whole design and stack it on top of itself, it's gonna look really weird just because there's so much flat surface area going on here. It's just not gonna make any sense. So what we can do instead is take like a piece of this thing or pieces of it and stack those on top of each other and get that same style of effect. So in order to do that, I'm gonna let's take this bottom bar here. I think that's probably our perfect candidate for this thing. So let's just Option click drag and drag that thing down to Smart Guide's gonna give us that nice gap again. Nope, you're not that smart apparently. So that's exactly why I saved that little rectangle tool. I'm also going to close this one up because we don't need this gap anymore and it doesn't line up with anything else. So let's just quickly grab that piece there, just drag it over to there. And we're gonna just quickly unite those things together. So what we need to do here, we need to do something with this, because if I pull this outward and just keep this rectangular thing we got going on here, the more of these that we add, the worse that's gonna get, and that's gonna start looking pretty ugly. Like it's gonna be just too much rectangle going on here. So I think what I wanna do is I wanna follow this same edge here and keep that with the top and bottom of this rectangle. So one quick way that we can do that is just, we're gonna grab this here again, and we're gonna just click Command C and Command F, pull those down, and I'm gonna just, yep, Smart Guides lined me up nice and perfect with that. Again, for some reason, it gave me the entire piece. I do not want that. I just wanted that one tiny little line. So we got that. That's lined up clean with the top of this. Let's just give it a quick stroke so we can see what's going on with it. And now we can see where it's at. And I'm actually going to grab this rectangle now and just pull this outward until it locks in with that. Let's grab this piece, make a copy of it, and drag it down. Let's lock it in with the bottom there. That's cool. I'm gonna select both of these and click Command J so it seals itself off into a shape. I'm gonna take these strokes off of it now. And now, yeah, that looks pretty cool. So let's take that thing and let's duplicate it on the other side. Actually, we can probably do this another way. We can just grab this thing and pull up our reflect tool, and we do not want to just reflect that piece. We want to make a copy, so we'll just hit this one here where it says copy. That's going to give us two of these bad boys. Let's drag that sucker over here. Yep, that's pretty sweet. So let's just repeat this thing a couple of times. Probably enough of those things. Yeah, that's looking pretty cool so far. So that's a pretty good spot to start off. Let's start turning this thing into a patch and add some more style to it yet. So I'm just gonna grab our M key, which is a rectangle tool. We're just gonna slap something over top of this real fast. It does not need to be anything special at this point. We're also gonna right click and send it to the back. There is a quick key for doing this. I can never remember all these things offhand, so that's just the way I do it. And quickly make that white so I can see what the hell is going on here. And we're just gonna grab this rectangle and just start messing around and seeing what feels good with it. Let's group those real fast. Let's select all this stuff. Let's make sure everything's nice and centered with our align tool now. That's pretty good. I think we can do a little bit better yet. I think I want to match this gap that's going on right here with this gap that's going on right here, if it's even possible, because we got the T's sticking out right here, but let's just see if we can do that real fast. Cool, so that's pretty good, but we can still take this thing a little bit further. And one thing I want to do is I want to round these corners off. So if we just click it and you see these little dots that pop up in the corner of pretty much anything that has a sharp edge or a corner on it, if you grab those, you can just pull those things in and it rounds them off nice and clean, which that gives us kind of like a little bit of a vintage vibe, which kind of suits it. So I'm gonna run with that. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a stroke to this as well, because that's gonna simulate the outer stitching on the patch, or the marrowing it's called. So we're gonna add that and give this thing a solid, like old school vintage patch vibe. So let's go ahead and add ourselves a bit of a stroke to this thing and just keep bumping it up until it looks right. So that looks pretty good. That looks a little too thick. I don't want to follow the same line thickness as everything that's going on in the design, because I think that'll be a little bit too much. I think if we bump it up to that, yeah, it's just way too much. So let's pull it down a little bit, somewhere, I don't know, there. I like that. The only thing I'm not liking right now is that the top and the bottom it's kind of big. Having that same gap across the board, it doesn't suit this thing. So I'm gonna pull this in just a little bit, and we're gonna center this thing up again now. Make sure that's all good. I'm actually gonna pull out the sides just a smidge too, because that feels like it's a little too close also. And yeah, that feels way better now. So this thing's pretty good, but there's just a little bit extra that I want to do that's really gonna set this thing off. And what that is I'm gonna take these little bars that we made here and turn that into kind of like a gradient fall off. This is actually gonna be really easy to do, because if you look at our Pantone swatch book over here, I always work in Pantone swatches, because at the end of the day, I'm a screen printer. We need to color match all the time. So my workflow is just revolves around these things. But if you take a look at these things, you can pick pretty much any color out of here. Let's just take a random green, for example, and you can see that it's got a corresponding lighter version of it, and darker versions, of course, if you go the other way. So we can probably find our orange in the swatch book and just pick the lighter versions of it as we go down the steps, and it'll probably be pretty damn close or dead on. Sometimes this works out, sometimes it doesn't, and you got to go off book and freestyle it, but we're gonna find out. So here we go. Here's our orange 21C over here in the swatch book. Let's grab this first bar and let's grab the next orange down from it. That works out nicely. Let's grab the next one down from that. That also works. Let's grab the next one. Boom. Oh, we're killing it so far here. Let's grab the, and we're out of oranges to use. We're running into a brown. So now this is where we got to freestyle something. So let's just work our way over to the next lightest thing. So that's this one. It's got like a bit of a yellowy green tinge to me. I don't like that one. So let's go up to this one right here. That one makes way more sense. I like that one. We'll stick with that. Sweet. So let's just grab this thing and expand this little outer edge that we made here so nothing gets wonky if we resize it. Let's group it real fast. And there we go. That's a solid finished design right there. I'm digging this thing. That gradient is really, really cool. And really, we kind of made a finished product out of this thing almost, because this file, I could send this off to any embroidery place and they will knock this thing out the way it sits on screen into a patch for me anytime. But check this thing out, man. Look how far we've come here today. We started off with this original piece of type where the kerning is just all over the map. This thing, there's nothing good going on here. I hate this. I don't even want to look at this anymore. We took that and we did some kerning tricks and we really evened this thing out, made it much cleaner, much more balanced. This is the way type should look. And I guarantee you, now that I pointed out kerning, you're never gonna look at lettering the same way again. You're always gonna notice that. We went from there down to this kind of more stylized version. We made this our own. We broke a bit of the rules, but it really kind of just set this thing off and gave us a good base to work with on our design. Then we went from that, and this is where we started modifying the type a little bit. This is where we scaled things up a little. This is where I went in and got rid of those weird curves that were going on inside the lettering. That really helped this thing out a lot. It made it look just a lot more symmetrical. And we went from that, and this is where we really tricked that lettering out and made it our own and made the base for our design. Now this is solid. Again, like I said, this thing works exactly as it sits right now. You could put this on anything and it's gonna look cool, and that's exactly what we did here. We made a couple color versions of it. Both of these look awesome. I really dig that orange and black one. Then we took that and we took it a little bit further. We went over here and made our kind of sticker type of design, which this thing is awesome. I say sticker design, but I guarantee you, like I said earlier, that this is gonna end up on a piece of clothing. I really, really dig this version of it. I like the little fangs that came off of there by accident. That's super cool. And just the color contrast that's going on in this thing is just, it's awesome. I really like this a lot. And then of course we got our patch design, which we tricked this thing out probably to the maximum without getting into anything really, really crazy. I'm trying to stick within kind of the beginner to novice skill set here. And this thing is awesome. This is with just very basic skills. We knocked something out here that looks amazing. You could sell this to clients all day long. This is super, super cool, and really it wasn't that difficult to make. And that's the basics of customizing type. Now that you have these few simple skills, you can grab pretty much any font that you want, start messing around with stuff, moving things, getting weird with it, and really make it your own and just start spitting these type of designs out like clockwork. And honestly, it's super fun to do. This is one of my favorite things to do when I'm kind of just sitting around in front of the TV. I'll just grab my laptop, start messing around, and just start tweaking things around and seeing what I can do with it. It's good practice, and sometimes cool stuff comes out of it. But now that I've dropped this hot knowledge on you, I want to see exactly what you guys do with it. So whether you followed this tutorial to the letter and you copied exactly what I made here on screen, which is totally cool, or if you went off and made something of your own, which is super, super awesome, I want to see what you guys did. So make sure you follow me on Instagram right here and shoot me a DM and let me know what you guys have done with this. And of course, if you guys have any questions or comments about any of this stuff, make sure you guys drop them down below for me. I will do my best to get to as many of those as I can. And if you like this thing, help a guy out and give this video a thumbs up, give it 2, give it 5, slap the hell out of that button for me, please. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one.